Welcome to the Business of Property podcast. I'm Simon.
I'm Stuart.
We're both property people running our own businesses. This podcast is just us chatting, as we often do, about anything and everything property. And before I get started interrogating Stuart on his updates, if you're enjoying this podcast, please do leave us a rating or review. It'd be great to hear from you. Moving on then, Stuart, you have a long-running title split, which I think you've got some news on.
Yeah, thanks for starting the show on some good news, because finally, after, I think 8 or so months, I've finished a title split, which I was told was going to be quite simple. So it actually finished 2 days ago, prior to 2 days before this recording. So
I think what you claim it was supposed to be simple. It involved 2 banks, the Land Registry. Was it 3 solicitors or just 2? I forget now.
You've probably got a better memory than I have on this. I'm glad I've got you on this show to remind me of the complexities of these things, because I just go, yeah, it was all fine. You're right. Yeah, there was it was complex. At least 2 sets of solicitors. Mine, the banks. Yeah.
But was it not different solicitors for each bank? I think that's where I'm thinking 3 from.
Yeah.
Plus your own. So
yeah, that's right. It's it's just money printing for banks, to be honest. It's all going in. I mean, if I've learned anything in the years that I've been working in property, and I'm sure you would agree, is the real winners of most of this are the banks, and the solicitors probably come a close second, I would say.
Yeah, it's it can be quite pricey to do anything, can't it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying they don't deserve the money, the solicitors and the professionals, but sometimes it does feel like I'm just relieving my pockets for the benefit of others. But so the split is finished. The split was of 2 properties, so it was a 7-bed property and a 6-bed property, which were next to each other, originally over commercial premises, which has been converted to residential. That had done prior to when I purchased, but I purchased it as a 13-bed, so semi-detached on a corner, and I've now split that into 2 separate properties. And once I completed the split, what I did, and I think I mentioned this before, but for those of you naughty people that might not have listened to that episode, the reason for the split was because it's a 13-bed, you're obviously limited on the number of banks that are going to lend to that, because it's obviously a very niche property. Now it's split to a 6 and a 7. The market's opened up a bit. Most of my portfolio is with Kent Reliance, and so we've moved to them as well, which for me is I'm quite highly leveraged on a lot of the portfolio, which means I can up the loan to value and also unlock some capital out of the properties as well. So done quite a few things on that. It's cost me a bit of money. In fact, it's cost me a fair amount of money in terms of early redemption charges. I would say in the region of 15k.
Ouch.
It is an ouchie. But I guess the little addendum story to this, just my bank story, and I'll try not to get into moan mode. But so what I like about Redwood is they are I guess you could put them in the challenger category. They're a fairly newish bank. You speak with people, which is great. You speak with real people more often than not. And the day before completion, so it's one of these things. So obviously we've been trying to get this done for several months, and actually Redwood were the cause of it taking so long. They didn't just send an email which needed to be sent to their solicitors just to get this process moving. But anyway, that's another story. But the day before the completion, so it's taken several months, and then literally 24 to 48 hours before, we're all running around like headless chickens because the mortgage offer from Kent Reliance expired within 2 days. So it's now kind of, we're putting the pressure on, because if that product expires, we won't necessarily get that product and so on. So typically we've been doing it for several months, and now we're all running around like headless chickens trying to get it completed. The day before the completion, I get an email from the bank, the incumbent bank, saying, we'd be really sorry to see you go. If you're leaving for a lower percentage or interest rate, please let us know because we'd like to retain your business. And my initial reaction to that was, wow, that's amazing. I can't tell you. I was I mean, this is how sad I am. I was genuinely pleased. I mean, it was like someone just, an old friend out of the blue wishing me a happy birthday. I was like, well, that's really nice. A bank's actually trying to retain my business. So excited by this email was I that I emailed them straight back and said, this is I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but I'm going to go for it anyway. Because I'm sure no one from Kent Reliance is going to listen. But I said, yeah, this is the new rate that I've been offered. And I am releasing some capital. So if you would be able to release some capital as well, I would happily stay it. And thank you for the opportunity. I mean, I'm genuinely pleased. So the person that sent me that email said, I just need to include the head of customer, whose name I shall not mention. And the head of customer responded very promptly and very curtly with two very clear lines, which said, unfortunately, your existing mortgage doesn't even meet current policy. Therefore, we will not be able to offer you any loans. Thank you. Thank you for your custom. And it went from being a challenger bank, a warm and fluffy feeling, to, oh, you're just going to act like a bank. And all of a sudden, not even my existing mortgage fits in with your criteria. So I got jettisoned immediately. I mean, I did send an email back, and let's just say I was fairly curt in my response, and outlined the need for them to have probably had discussed that prior to offering me a potential retention deal. So that was the little addendum there.
Yeah, they could have thought that one through a little better, couldn't they?
Well, yeah. I then sent my response, and the response came back, which was essentially trying to outline why there could have been an offer. And my response was, well, if you're saying that the mortgage that I'm currently on doesn't fit within your existing policy, therefore there could have been no offer, there could be no option. Have I misunderstood?
Perhaps you were planning to put some cash in, and
yeah,
for the refinancing. I mean, I guess it's possible.
Yeah. I guess that 1 in a billion chance of, hey, Mr. Bank, I've got an extra. No. But anyway, so it's all complete. So that is some good news because, as you know, we had a little bit of bad news over the last week. I won't go into that. We'll stay on title splitting because so that is happy, and I'm glad we've got this podcast because actually it gives some closure.
Indeed, and all said and done, you have ended up extracting a little bit of extra capital from this process.
I have, but as you and any continual listeners will know, the money stays in my. It's one of those things. It's a nice thing for approximately 3 seconds until I reapportion it to where it's got to go because we don't actually have enough capital to pay for the refurb on another property that we're. If you're a builder or an electrician listening to this, don't. It's absolutely fine. The funds will be there.
It's just a timing issue. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you, Simon. Exactly. It's all about timing. So that money's going straight into a little pot for the refurb that we're doing on the 5-bed en suite. So it's one of those you enjoy it and you have maybe a half a fist bump for a second, and then you send that cash over to where it's got to go, disappears again. But so that's my title split.
Yes, I've got my own title adventures ongoing at the moment. So I've got a property that has a sort of rectangular garden, but as in the real world rectangular garden. But on its title plan, it's a sort of odd shaped.
Got a lump taken out of it, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's got a sort of triangle taken out of the bottom, and the plan is to get that plan redrawn so that it actually shows the reality, and indeed then matches with the other title plans around it, which all seem correct to what's really there. And the information about this and details of the plan and what needs to change, and photos as evidence and things, have all gone to a conveyancer, a solicitor. And the last update I gave was that she had responded and said, "Thank you very much. I'll look at this and get back to you." and we didn't hear any more for a while. So we followed up, and we're not quite sure how far this has actually got, but it's somewhere around the solicitor processing it and the Land Registry processing it. We're not quite sure where it's currently sitting between those two, but the solicitor did say that there's a very big backlog at the Land Registry at the moment. So we could expect a delay.
I've got a question for you.
Go for it.
What have they got to process at this point in time? Has anything been redrawn?
This is something we are unsure about. Because the title plans for the plots around ours are all correct, they actually have our plot on those plans in the right shape. They just don't have the red line around it, obviously, because the red line's around a different plot. So we were hoping, when we first started this sort of looking into this, that we could just say to the Land Registry, can you please use one of your existing plans that you've got that's correct for the area and just draw the red line around the right plot? And we might not actually need to have someone draw a red line for us. And hence this was sort of one of the things we put to our solicitor. And she hasn't come back and said, can you please get someone to draw a red line around your plot on a plan?
Mm.
So our hope is that either she will do that, or she is getting somebody to do that, or that she expects the Land Registry to do that. We need to clarify that, but we haven't yet. And so I don't really know the answer to your question, unfortunately. But it might, hopefully, be that we don't need to get anyone to draw that red line.
Mm.
But we shall see. So we're still following up with her on this. And we have said that we're now looking at selling this property. So could she please ask the Land Registry very nicely to get a move on? And she said she will try.
Yeah. Well, that's something to put a fire under it. So hopefully that will help. And yeah, I'd hope that the solicitor can get that answer from the Land Registry soon, because yeah, I think it's a small job by the sounds of it. But unfortunately, when you involve solicitors, and I sound like I'm solicitor bashing today. I'm not. But if you involve sort of solicitors and architects or planners that need to design, it can exacerbate timings. So particularly as you want to get it, although you could put it on the market and still process this concurrently.
Yes, and that's actually what we're doing. So the last time I talked about this, I think we were umming and ahhing about what to do and whether to put it back on, or to put it on the market, should I say. But we have now made a decision.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We have chosen an agent. We have requested that they go in and take photographs and hopefully a virtual tour type thing and stuff as well. By the time this episode goes live, the listing might even be live. Not be touch and go, but maybe. So that could be all there on the open market, ready and waiting to excite public interest.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Well, if you did that, if you could get that on, we would have between us 3 properties on the market.
Indeed. Yes.
Not that I want mine on the market by the time you get yours on the market. I'd rather they were off the market.
Well, that's an excellent segue, actually. So how are yours getting on?
Oh, you do always do a good job of turning this back onto me, don't you? I need to up my game, do some more probing questions. So, well, let's start with the personal flat. Has gained some interest. We've had some viewings. We haven't yet had an offer. We have had 2 second viewings.
So just to clarify, this is the studio flat in Kingston.
Correct.
Right, cool.
Not Jamaica.
No, I had a look at the listing for this one. It's a really nice flat. It looks really good.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say we dressed it. My wife and my twin daughters dressed it. So if anyone wants to have a look, feel free. If you go onto Rightmove and look at Kilo Tango 2 5 Bravo Papa, and you'll find a studio flat in the region of 250, 260. Feel free, have a look.
And for anyone who can't be bothered to do that, there'll be a link in the show notes.
And I was thinking it as I said it. I thought we're going to add it to the show notes, so I don't really need to go into this. But yeah, so that is garnering some interest. The market for that is first time buyers and investors. So it depends on that market. The challenge with that sort of property is, well, particularly with the stamp duty and potentially Help to Buy. We're on the cusp, but it was a property my wife bought, and we're just waiting for someone similar to my wife. And we have had a not necessarily female, but first time buyer that's looking for more space, because, as we've said before, the great thing about this property that we're selling is that it feels more like a one bed than a studio. It's not just a room with a bed in a corner, for example. So the people that have come to view it, they are looking at other properties. And if they're looking in Surbiton and Kingston, our hope is, because what will eventually happen is that if they go and look at other studios, they'll see what I've just said, is that they'll go to be, which can be quite depressing, especially as your first property. You don't want to just say, oh, my bed's over there. And this has got a much more first bed feel to it. But I think people need to see what else is in the market and realise that you get quite a bit for your money. You get your own, it sounds strange again, but you get your own front door. So it's not because it's in an old Victorian building. I sound like I'm selling it now, don't I? I sound like I'm...
Well, I don't know why you might want to do that.
But it's got its own little side entrance, and it's when it got dressed, it looks really nice. And yeah, I'm going to finish the sales pitch. Since my wife moved out of it 13 years ago, it's never not been rented. The only reason it's not rented now is because of the previous tenants moved out, and we decided to leave it empty to sell it. But it's never had a void period since we've had it. But anyway, that's that one.
So have you spoken to the agents? Do they feel that it's going well?
They do, and we've had conversations around price, as we often do. They feel that the price is right, and I think the viewings probably support that. I think the removal of stamp duty obviously helps it a lot. So it's one of those. We'll see the next couple of weeks. I think it just takes time for this property, as I've just said. I think for people to realise that there is value in the property. For anyone listening in certain areas, I mean, we're in the southeast, so I don't think it's going to sound shocking for people in the southeast that a studio property that is 30 square meters is up for 260. I've just bought a 5-bed for 190 in Plymouth, so I know how that can sound, but that's the area we're in.
It is always seems to me so crazy that property prices vary so dramatically between relatively close geographic areas within the country. And yeah, you can go much further up north and buy a whole house for less than £100,000, which just seems crazy when, as you say, flats down here are going for 200,000 plus. It's very strange.
Well, without going too far off piste, I remember a few years back when I was still debating on going all into the area I was investing in, and I looked at the northeast, and you can still get properties for under 50k. Now, obviously, you'll have to look at the fundamentals of those, but it's still. If you go further north than that into Scotland, you can still be getting properties for 40, 50k in certain areas. But bringing it back to the Kingston flat, it's got everything in terms of the infrastructure around it. So you're a stone's throw from Kingston train station, so you're 10 minutes from central London maximum. You've got buses to Richmond. You can get the tube. There's a bus to a tube. So it's got all of that. So, as we know, that is what inflates the price to,
Yeah, that's what provides the value.
Yeah. The difference with Plymouth, obviously, is in Plymouth and blah, so on. But it's a different conversation, I think. So that's Kingston. You're going to ask me about Croydon.
So you've got another one, yes. you have a 2, maybe 3-bed flat in Croydon.
If I hit my head on the mic, no, you can't hear that.
Well, I saw the meter spike, so yeah, not too much head banging on the microphone, please.
So this project, I'm going to preempt by saying this is a project which I have learnt a lot from. So
I like your phrasing there.
original offer, April 2019, which got accepted. So offer accepted 2019 and purchase completed October 2019. So that was the first, and that was supposed to be a quick purchase. We had bridging funds.
At some point, we must do an episode on how long it takes to actually sell a property or buy a property. I mean, obviously, for that transaction to take place.
Yeah. Well, the reason I always call that out, because we were essentially cash buyers on that, but it still took 6 months because it was in a property. I'll cut straight to the end. But so we have turned a 1-bed into a 2/3-bed because it was one hell of a spacious 1-bed. To be honest, it was quite a luxurious, opulent 1-bed. We've turned it into still a sort of luxurious 2/3, and I've got loads of photos of that, which and that's on Rightmove as well, actually.
Yeah, indeed, I have looked at that listing as well, and that does look like a good flat as well.
Did you like the photos?
I can't actually remember the photos.
Yes,
for that one. I can remember the
Simon.
Floor plan, but not the photos. Oh, yeah. But yes, I'm sure they're brilliant.
Thank you. And again, that's well dressed, and that was done by my business partner Scott on this project. My JV partner on this project, Scott. The challenge we've got, so that has been up on Rightmove, and a question came up on something called an EWS1 form. EWS stands for External Wall Survey, and EWS1 is a form which is a requirement. I don't know all of the details, but essentially following the Grenfell disaster, the government, I don't know if it's legislation, but brought in some legislation whereby an EWS1 form was required to demonstrate that the cladding was safe, essentially. That's my summary of it. So essentially cladding has to be safe. So, of course, no one's going to argue with that requirement because we want safe buildings. However, my understanding is that requirement got brought in December 2019. So 2 months after we bought the property. The challenge we have is that we have existing works on the property. So that's a question which keeps coming up because there's scaffolding outside the property. It's a mixed-use building. It's a really big building in Croydon. Again, a stone's throw from East Croydon Station. It's like several minutes from central London. It's a great location. The building itself is great from the outside. It's a mirrored building on the corner. Anyone that sort of knows East Croydon would probably know this building. But the works outside we believed were going on for a year, which had started last year. So we thought they were imminently finishing. And it turns out they're not. The works on the outside cladding is going to run for another year. And only once those works finish will we get this EWS1 form. So that in itself isn't a problem. The problem is that anyone that wished to buy the property that was using a bank wouldn't get it, because our understanding, what we're hearing anecdotally from our estate agent, who I believe is knowledgeable in this area, he said last year only 3 banks were providing mortgages on flats without EWS1 forms. This year so far, 0. So that kind of told us all we needed to know, which immediately...
It's going to restrict your audience a bit. Just a bit. I would say 90% plus of our market suddenly dissipated and got blown away in the wind, which to put it mildly was, if we had a bleep button, I'd bleep myself, but was bloody disappointing. But as we do, we've just gone straight into, okay, if that's what we can't do, what can we do? So we have dropped the price and made it a cash buyer only, just to see what interest we get. And so far we've had 4 viewings, and that only happened at the time of this recording a few days ago. So we switched it. We've had 4 viewings. I think we've had a second viewing, and we are told that we are due to receive an offer. That he received an offer verbally, but he needs to get it in writing so that he can submit it to us. So it's not all bad. I mean, the bad news is obviously we are going to lose a significant amount. Well, it depends. We don't have to accept the offer. We are just still seeing what we can get. Obviously, the other option is to retain the property for another year, wait till the work's done, and sell it. So we'll make a call. And am I right in thinking you have a tenant there at the moment? So
yeah, we do. So my business partner on this one, Scott, is very good at getting short-term tenants. Does a lot of serviced accommodation. So he's kind of got a process set up. So we got someone in there for 3 months. So they are covering the cost of the mortgage. and some.
So while it wasn't the plan, holding it for a year isn't a disaster.
Oh, it's borderline. It's borderline, because the other thing is what we weren't fully cognizant of, and we take responsibility for, but we don't feel it was. We're still looking into it with the solicitors. Is that what we didn't realise was that I don't want to share the number specifically on this one. It's still too painful, but the service charge is kind of quadruple what we thought it was going to be. After a little bit of digging, it didn't take much. Is that, of course, we as leaseholders are paying for the cladding works, or a good proportion of.
Yeah.
So the rent, even if it's only for 3 months, will just about cover. Well, it will cover the bridge. So that's another challenge we've got. It will cover the bridge and a fair portion of the service charge. So all of those elements together make it not a great proposition for a buyer, because if you were just a normal buyer that was thinking about a property to buy, well, if we're forgetting the EWS one, if we're forgetting the cladding issue for a second, it was still quite a tough pill to swallow for potential buyers, because they're like, hold on, why is this service charge? Because we were exactly the same. We're like, bloody hell, this service charge is high.
Yes, and I'd forgotten that you're still on a bridge for that property, and presumably this EWS1 form, or the lack of, also means that you can't remortgage off of your bridge onto a standard mortgage either.
Yeah, so it's going to throw up a challenge there, but Simon, I love a challenge, and this will be about finding a solution. And my belief is always, I'm glad you're laughing. There will be a solution. It will be because the revised valuation is that good, and the bank has agreed with our revised valuation that we think there's obviously it shifted our loan to value. So based on revised valuation, our LTV, loan to value, is under 50%. So that is a small ray of light in this whole thing.
Perhaps the bank will be a little more flexible with you, because it's such a low loan to value.
Yeah, I had some not so good things to say about banks, but I will finish on this with Interbase so far, and we'll see, because it's always where the rubber hits the road that you get to learn the most about the banks. But they actually phoned me a couple of weeks back just to say, your current period is coming to an end, and just wanted to make sure you're aware of that and talk about options. And I then, as I do transparently, said, look, just so you're aware, this was before the cladding issue. I just said, look, just so you're aware, things got delayed. I think we're going to need at least a couple more months at best. The response was really, really positive. Don't worry. Don't lose sleep about it. There'll be options, and we'll work them out with you. And again, that was really refreshing to hear. Based on what we said at the start of this conversation, actions will always speak louder than words, but the response has been great. So we'll see how we go. So that's quite a nice way to round this off on a positive note.
Indeed, I think it is. And we should very much leave it there then, before we get bogged down with anything bad. So leaving on that positive note, I will simply say thank you very much to everyone for listening. And please do leave us a rating and review. We very much appreciate it, and very much love receiving feedback. And until next week, I shall say goodbye. Show notes can be found at thebusinessofproperty.com.
See you next week.